Good afternoon. I'm Robert J. Contee III, Chief of Police of the Metropolitan Police Department here in Washington, D.C. Today I'll be briefing on two incidents. I'll be briefing on several incidents, but the first incident I'll be briefing on will be about a video that has surfaced. MPD is aware of the video that has surfaced on social media depicting an MPD member using force against the subject. I have watched this video. I am embarrassed, disturbed, disheartened, and ashamed of what I've seen. We are an agency of more than 3,500 officers, and I assure the community this is not consistent with our training, our tactics, our policies, procedures, nor is it consistent with our agency's values. This incident will be referred to the United States Attorney's Office today for prosecutorial consideration and subsequent investigation by MPD's Internal Affairs Division. While getting illegal firearms is a priority for safer communities, this is not the way we train our members to get illegal firearms off the streets. On Sunday, August 8, 2021, officers report witnessing a hand-to-hand drug transaction. Officers eventually stopped an individual, conducted a brief pat-down, and felt the bulge of a firearm in the subject's waist area. As a result of this encounter, 3 MPD officers' police powers have been revoked, and those officers have been placed in a non-contact status, pending criminal and administrative investigations. MPD prides itself on treating everyone with respect, even when we are recovering guns and taking some of our most violent criminals off of our streets. It will be done constitutionally and respectfully. Our standard as police officers are intentionally set high. This is to ensure we have the support and trust of the communities we serve. This video does not reflect that standard. That will be the end of my statement with respect to this, and I will answer questions shortly after I make the next statement regarding homicides. There are 3 homicides that have occurred over the weekend that I'd like to address with the public at this time. A homicide offense occurred in the 600 block of 53rd Street Southeast at approximately 12 a.m. on Saturday, August the 7th. Members of the 6th District responded to the 600 block of 53rd Street Southeast for the report of a shooting. Upon arrival, members located an adult male victim suffering from apparent gunshot wound. The victim was transported to a local hospital for treatment. After all life-saving efforts failed, the victim succumbed to his injuries and was ultimately pronounced deceased. A short time later, 2 additional adult male victims were transported to area hospitals and treated for non-life-threatening injuries. The decedent in this case has been identified as 20-year-old Jawan Williams of Southeast Washington, D.C. The next case occurred in the 200 block of 49th Street Southeast at approximately 6:17 p.m. on Saturday. Members of the 6th District were flagged down the area of the 200 block of 49th Street Southeast and located an adult male in a vehicle suffering from a gunshot wound. The decedent in this case has been identified as 69-year-old James Beckham of Suitland, Maryland. The last case, a homicide offense, occurred in the 3000 block of Nelson Place Southeast. At approximately 4:29 p.m. on Saturday, August 7th, members of the 6th District responded to the 3000 block of Nelson Place for the report of a shooting. Upon arrival, members located an adult female victim inside of a residence suffering from a gunshot wound. The victim was transported to an area hospital where, after all life-saving efforts failed, this victim was pronounced deceased. The decedent in this case has been identified as 20-year-old Kendall Brown of Hyattsville, Maryland. On Sunday, August 8th, pursuant to a D.C. Superior Court arrest warrant, members of the Capital Area Regional Fugitive Task Force arrested 22-year-old Ahmad Jefferson of Fort Washington, Maryland. He has been charged with second-degree murder while armed in this case. And I think that these cases really underscore, again, just the violence that we have seen recently in our city. It's consistent with what we have seen going on in the national landscape with respect to gun violence in our communities. At this point, I will address any questions that you may have. We'll start over here. Yes.
There's several officers in the video. You said 3 officers' police powers have been revoked. Could you clarify which 3 specifically you're referring to?
So the 3 officers, the officer who made the punch, and there are 2 other officers in the video. Yes.
And you said non-contact status. Could you distinguish? Is that the same as administrative leave? Could you define that for
One
us?
member, well, basically non-contact status, no contact with the public. One member will be on administrative leave. The striking member, and again, this matter is being sent to the United States Attorney's Office for prosecutorial review today.
Are all 3 under
Yes.
under criminal investigation?
Yes, that is correct.
And administrative investigation?
It's criminal first.
Okay.
And then once they make a determination on the criminal side, what will happen, then the administrative investigation will happen after we go the criminal route first.
Got it.
That review has to happen first.
And can you identify any of the 3 officers by name?
I'm not releasing their names at this point. Yes. And then we'll come in.
Happening leading up to this? Is this a case where officers were in the area personally witnessing this? Does this involve the gun recovery unit? Does this involve what people call jump out squads? And tell us about what video will be released by the police department. Are we going to get the body cam video, and will it be from multiple officers or just one?
Yeah, thank you for the question, Darcy. So the officers were in the area while they were inside of the car. They observed this transaction. Once they observed this transaction, they went to approach these 2 individuals. I've seen body-worn camera video. I've seen the video that's been released to the public. I don't think there's anything that's more damning than what I've already seen, quite frankly. The review process, or the video will go, the body-worn camera review process will take place as it normally does, and if there's a determination to release the body-worn camera video in addition to what's already out there publicly, then it will be done so at that time.
Did they have reason to believe that he was armed at that time?
It appears that they did, but again, that will all come out in the investigation. Yes, sir. Yeah, you, sir, right here. Sorry.
Get the mic in place there. Chief Tom Rousley, Channel 7 News. I wanted to ask you about the weekend violence.
Yeah.
Is there any common thread, it appears, at this point in the motives? Are any of them related? Is this drug trade? Is this street crews? Can you tell us anything about the motives at this point?
People with guns. I mean, that's the common denominator. People with illegal firearms, I would say that. Sometimes it's, for the cases that we are working right now, sometimes it's as a result of a dispute. Sometimes it's just as a result of, somebody just shooting randomly at individuals who are in the group, and maybe they're just targeting that one person. But illegal guns, we can say that for certain. As we get further in these investigations, and obviously you hear through communication with individuals in community, what the underlying issue is right now. But the bottom line is we got too many people with illegal firearms in our communities. Yes, ma'am.
I noticed in the video, after watching it a couple of times, that some of the other people who are recording began throwing trash at the police. Your reaction in terms of where is this going to lead in the community? What's your message to the community? Because it felt like they were fighting back to help this young man.
Yeah, well, obviously they were upset by that, and I think there are a lot of people who watched the video who were upset. I was upset when I saw the video. I've been working my tail off, and she'll have a lot of members within this police department to really make sure that we engage community in positive spaces. And when we have things that happen, whether it's on our police department or in community where people do things, be it police officers or someone else, that does not move us forward in those engagements, those are things that have to be addressed. I've been talking about accountability, whether I'm talking about accountability outside of the police department or inside of the police department, it really doesn't matter to me. We have a responsibility to the way that we treat community, and I didn't see that. Yes, ma'am. Over here, then Paul. Yes.
To the people recording saying, "I'll punch again," or something to that effect. Can you talk about, in your review of that video, the viral video, what enraged you the most with what you saw, how you reacted at different points, and then, well, I'll ask a follow-up question too.
Well, quite simply, at the point where, this officer made contact with this individual, that's the point where, where my outrage is. I understand we got to get illegal guns off the street, but it's the way that we go about doing the things that we do. That is not consistent with our training. That's not consistent with our tactics. It's not consistent with our policies, with our procedures. It's certainly not consistent with the values of this agency or my own personal values. And when we have someone engaged in that type of behavior, it brings discredit to our entire agency.
And then with the other two officers that were also placed on no contact, what did they do that you felt they needed to be placed as well?
So as we review this whole entire incident, I believe that as police officers, we have a responsibility not just to the public, but we also have a responsibility to each other. And when we see members are engaged in behavior that is questionable, behavior that could be criminal, behavior that is not consistent with our training and our policies and our tactics, then we have a responsibility to engage at that point. Understanding that at this particular time, there was a gun involved. There was an illegal firearm that was recovered. But again, the way that we go about handling our business before, during, and after the incident are all things that are part of this investigation that I need to look at. Paul, yes.
Two-part question.
Yeah.
First part is the 69-year-old man who was shot and killed in the city. Do you know the circumstances behind that?
Yeah, he was inside of a vehicle. We got a call about an assault. Officers responded to the area. Someone flagged us down. Said, hey, there's a guy in the car, a guy who he knew, and he said that he was suffering from a gunshot wound. We obviously went to the location that we were directed to where we came upon this individual. So, obviously there's some investigation that has to be done in that space. But again, we're asking for the public's assistance with all of these cases. If anyone has any information about that case or any of the others, please feel free to reach out to us, 727-9099 or 50411. We're offering up to a $25,000 reward in that case.
Secondly, last week, you put out in your weekly firearms recoveries a case in which NSID had a search warrant for an apartment down at a 200 block of K Street Southwest. They found 7 people in the apartment, and they found this cache of weapons that included a couple of assault weapons, some pistols, including one that had a giggle switch on it. When I checked the records, it appeared that some people had not been charged. One guy who was charged was released the next day. So my question is this: is there a pattern, anecdotally, is there a pattern in which people are only being charged if your officers can put these guns in the hands of people, and the charges are not being filed for some other reason that we're unaware of?
Yeah, so Paul, I think in all these cases, again, this is what I've been saying to community. I think that we have to really kind of examine, the whole process here and how this takes place. Why is it that a place that the police serve a search warrant, multiple individuals inside, multiple firearms inside? How is it that individuals are back out in community, right? That's a question that we really have to dig into. Certainly, I know that you and others have been doing your due diligence, but as I look at these cases every day, we see quite a bit of this. Quite a bit of individuals who have been caught with firearms back out in community. It's an issue. It's a problem. I don't think that it's unique to specifically here just in Washington, D.C., but it is an issue. And my hope is that we will address this issue head on here, really take an examination, really look at the entire process from the time that person comes into MPD custody all the way through, whether the case gets no paper, the reasons why not, and then all the way through the process, all the way through to the very end when it comes to, what's the accountability mechanism that happens there. Is that consistent with what the community's expectations are? I think that whole process needs to be looked at. Thank you. Yes. Wait a minute. We'll go here. Wait a minute. You had a question, so we'll go here. You have not had one, and we'll go here. I'll come back to her, and then you, Mitch. And then you'll be the last one. Yes, sir.
So in regards to the video that surfaced from last night, some people would argue that there are many cases that don't get on video. And that video obviously triggered your comment this morning, in addressing it. So how does MPD go about investigating alleged police brutality cases that don't happen on video, that people often report?
So I would say that anytime anyone witnesses or feels like they have witnessed an incident of police brutality, that they would make those complaints known, obviously, to our Office of Police Complaints. That's an independent agency, independent of the Metropolitan Police Department. All of our officers are equipped with body-worn camera footage, so that footage can be reviewed to see if, in fact, there is something there that should be that warrants investigation further. If there are actual credible facts there that need to be investigated. I've been around this place long enough to know that sometimes there's truth in things and sometimes there's not truth. But we do have a mechanism to confirm that, and that is by the complaint being made and then the review of the body-worn camera footage. Yes, ma'am. You.
To what degree would you say, though,
again, sir?
Since you first came into your position, how often, if you could tell me, how often has that been used, in your investigation to get guns off the street?
Anytime it's alleged, there's a review of the body-worn camera footage. I can't stand here and tell you, it was 3 cases or it was 5 cases. I can't give you that information, but I can tell you that any and every time an allegation of police brutality or whatever is made and that matter is investigated, there's an opportunity for us to review body-worn camera footage to see if it actually occurred. Yes, ma'am.
Chief Delia Gonzalez from WSA 9. A two-part question.
Sure.
One, do we know if these officers are familiar with that area of Ward 8, if they patrolled that area before? And 2, when you came into your position, you were championed and celebrated for being a local, being a native, understanding the parts of this city and the folks of this city who say they've been over-policed for generations. What do you say in regards to mending those relationships after people see this type of behavior and this video going viral?
Yeah, so a couple of things to that. These officers were assigned to the 7th District, so they are familiar with the area. Whether or not they're familiar with the individual, I don't know. Whether or not they're familiar with the individual involved. With respect to me coming through the door, I think it uniquely places me in position to be able to really kind of understand community frustration. Several community members, actually that's how I found out about several community members who trust me, sent this information to me, sent this video to me, which really kind of got things rolling. So I want to those, I'll just say publicly, thank you for forwarding this information to me and entrusting me with the responsibility to do what we need to do to ensure that this matter is resolved. And when I say resolved, meaning that it has to go through its process. I think when you talk about what I see in terms of how I engage with community, this is a daily act for me in terms of making sure that we are doing everything that we possibly can to engage community in positive spaces, because eventually there are bad things that happen sometime, and I want to continue, and I will continue to make those investments in community. Matter of fact, as soon as I leave here, I'm going to meet with some members in community about this issue, right? Because it's important to me. It's important to me that they understand, again, that in my role and the responsibility that I have, this is not something that I take lightly. Again, it's not something that I'm proud of. It's not something that we whitewash. I'm embarrassed behind this. I'm ashamed behind this. And at the end of the day, we need to make sure that this matter that it goes through the process the way that it needs to go through. Yes, let me move over here to, I think it was you, and then Mitch, and then Darcy, you'll be the last one. Yes.
There are some who are commenting on the other side of this, saying that a firearm was pulled from the man. Would you have rather police shot at this person? Can you please respond to that and also clarify what is police policy when it does come to striking someone?
Yeah, so first of all, people who would respond that way, we do need to get illegal firearms off the street. We absolutely do. Illegal firearms, they take lives. Bullets take lives, and they have no names on. We absolutely need to get illegal firearms off the street. But that is not the way that you do it. That's not the way that you do it. It's not a way that I'm accepting. It's not the way that we train. It's not our tactics. It's not our policy. When there's individuals, if this individual was, and again, I don't want to go too far down the line on this because there's a process, and I don't want the process to be tainted by my comments here. But if this individual was actively combative or something like that, clearly he was not just putting his hands behind his back, say, hey, take me to jail. So I understand that there are some people who might think that, but that's not the way that we train. Even if you think that that's okay, it's not the way that we train to get illegal firearms from people. It's just not. Mitch? And then Darcy's the last one. I got to get out of here. I got to meet with some community members. I also want to recognize, and I'm sorry I see all the lights in my face and I got my glasses on, but the presence of Councilmember Trayon White, who's also here as well as the deputy mayor. And I should have really started with that. Yes, sir, you.
Talk with some more specificity about how MPD does train to use closed fist strikes or punching in this case?
Yeah, if we use straight strikes as an example, it's in a situation where there's a combative individual, we would use a straight strike in that type of instance, but we have to be very careful about where we strike as officers, and we don't teach our members to make those types of strikes to the head in those in that type of situation.
Sorry, one more. Do you know if this officer has been investigated for conduct
No,
similar
I don't
to this?
know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Chief, if you could give a little bit more info as far as the person, I don't know if we call him a suspect at this point. My understanding was taken into custody. What charges is he facing? And considering the fact that these officers are now under investigation, what does the outlook look like as far as prosecuting the person? Will you proceed with that?
Yeah, so initially I think he was charged with possession of the illegal firearm, that kind of thing. I'm not sure what all the charges were. I'm not sure what the U.S. Attorney's Office is going to do ultimately with the case. They'll have to make a decision on that based upon their review of the case. That's pretty much where we are, and I'm assuming that'll happen sometime this morning or this afternoon at the latest. They'll make a determination. As far as I know, yes. And obviously I've been, kind of dealing with this morning, so I'm not sure, if he's been presented or not, or just kind of what the status is. Thank you guys all for your time this morning. Yep.